Have you ever wished you had fairly odd parents to grant you a bunch of wishes? No, that's not a question. But as much as you wanted it, it never happened because obviously there's no such thing as a fairy godparent. I even went a bit more extreme because I was certain that my blessed neighbor had fairy godparents, as he always had the coolest stuff. But in the end, I found out he didn't have magical powers. He had a magical dad with a lot of money. His dad is in jail now, but that's another story. The point is that The Fairly OddParents is a really cool show. It started in 1998 as part of the Oh Yeah cartoon shorts, which became a full series in 2001. But before that, for some bizarre reason, it was known as one of Nickelodeon's worst current cartoons. However, one thing no one can deny is that this cartoon is one of the best, a true classic. And like all classics, it suffered a bit from imitations. Pixel Pinky is a cartoon that few people know, an Australian cartoon that premiered in 2009 and had 2 long seasons. Supposedly, the idea for Pixel Pinky was born at the Blue Rocket Productions animation studio. The series was about a girl named Nina who has a genie whom she needs to keep a secret. The genie can grant wishes, but the wishes can go wrong, and Nina has to fix everything. Well, this sounds quite similar to what happens with our fairy godparent, doesn't it? One thing we should make clear is that it's totally understandable that few people know this series, due to the fact that it was only broadcast in Australia, Bulgaria, Portugal, and South Africa. In other words, it didn't reach America. What's not understandable is that you haven't liked this video to help me. That's sad. It's very likely that your first impression when seeing this series is that it's clearly a total and blatant plagiarism of The Fairly OddParents, one of the most iconic series of many people's childhoods. Therefore, I understand if you feel annoyed saying this. And you'll get even more annoyed when you learn about the differences between these series. Because on one side we have Timmy, a good kid who has family problems and uses his fairy godparents to make his life more interesting. And on the other side, there's Nina, a girl who only cares about being popular and not having her parents embarrass her. In general terms, these are the most important differences. There are still more, but it's better to look at the plot in detail. The cartoon begins when Nina, a 12-year-old girl, moves to another city with her parents, and like anyone in a new neighborhood or a content creator on the internet, she had no friends. So she decided to go talk to people to socialize a bit, but she's harshly rejected by a girl for not having a cell phone. Super understandable, right? Then Nina meets Annie, who accompanies her to a convenience store to buy a cell phone and stop being a loser. She buys the cheapest cell phone she can find, as if that would solve the problem. But this is where something really crazy happens, because from this cell phone appears Pixel Pinky, her own magical godparent. Pixel Pinky tells Nina that she will be there to help her with everything and also to get her into a lot of trouble for not specifying exactly what she wants. It's basically The Fairly OddParents. Supposedly, she also has the same rules about not revealing that she has a magical godparent, which might seem complicated, but it's not, because all the characters in this series are blind. On many occasions, you can see Pixel Pinky casually next to other people, and no character notices her existence. And this isn't her genie state, because she can also transform into a human to avoid raising suspicions. There are many similarities, but not everything is plagiarism. There are several considerable differences between the series. In Pixel Pinky, Nina is not unhappy, she doesn't have an evil babysitter, she naturally doesn't have a crazy teacher who hates her, and her parents pay attention to her and are not completely useless. They are more like ecological hippies, but not useless. They have a golden life. But, well, taking that into account, we can perfectly deduce what the series is about. And even worse, we can deduce every single one of its 52 episodes. Honestly, many times the plot of the episodes wasn't that great, or wasn't well structured. In addition to that, as expected, there are similarities. For example, this one, when Nina clones herself. There's also that episode when Nina wants her parents to be more amazing. And even the episode where Nina wishes to be invisible. Despite borrowing plots from The Fairly OddParents, they weren't interesting to watch. They weren't fun. They seemed a bit strange, like, for example, this second where the limbs of Nina's clone fall off. At the character level, there are also some that bear a slight resemblance to The Fairly OddParents. For example, there's Annie, whose personality reminds me a bit of Tootie, and there's also Cool Luke, who is a cheap copy of Chip Skylark, but Chip Skylark is irreplaceable. Pixel Pinky isn't exactly a direct copy of a fairy godparent, as she's a genie inside a cheap cell phone. She's practically a Siri, only clumsier. One of the most obvious comparisons is that the plot of each episode happens because a wish made by Nina caused more problems than solutions. And just like in The Fairly OddParents, Pixel Pinky must follow a series of rules about things she can't do.
Besides all this, there's also the magical world. In Pixel Pinky, there is also a magical world. It's called the Pixel World, but in the end, it's the same thing. Okay, in my opinion, plagiarism is a bad thing, but there are good plagiarisms. It's not right to plagiarize, but if you're going to do it, at least do it well. Pixel Pinky doesn't vary badly since even without counting the plot, it has many negative points. One of these points is the animation. It's a very cheap Flash animation, not to say poor. It also has strange voice acting. In this series, children speak like adults and without expressing emotions. The character design is so lazy, but Pixel Pinky also has good things. Like, for example, the fact that the series ended when it should have ended. After 2 seasons, the genie reveals to Nina that she always had a wish limit and that her free subscription had run out. How sad, right? Imagine having all the power in the world and suddenly losing it without being able to do anything. Throughout the video, I maintain this stance that Pixel Pinky was plagiarism for entertainment purposes, but the truth is that it's not entirely accurate. One could say that it merely used the formula of kid finds an object and this object has something magical inside it. It would be the equivalent of saying that, I don't know, the Fairly OddParents is a copy of Aladdin. I don't know. In the end, this series wasn't that successful and is one of many animations that simply went unnoticed. Thank you very much for watching the video till the end. If you liked it, consider subscribing to the channel. It's 100% free.